Good morning. I had a conversation in the last day or so with a colleague who had the unfortunate situation where a phone hearing, I believe it was a phone hearing, for an ALJ hearing, ended up not being able to go through because for some reason the reception or whatever, they couldn't connect. And that was phone. And of course, with cell phones, we all know that that certainly can happen. Bad reception. It's not like the old landline days. So in this event, um, it appears that the ALJ was a little disgruntled and not sure whether the ALJ was aware that the representative and the client were trying to get through, um, or how that went down. But I know it can be concerning to think that your tech might not work when you have a scheduled hearing. So in that case, it went pretty bad. I think there might have been some interpersonal conflicts, where the ALJ was just not having much tolerance. Because I will tell you that in my experience, the ALJs are extremely understanding of tech problems because they have them too, all the time. Very, I would say less than half the time do my hearings go off without a hitch. They all go off, but oftentimes there is a few minutes delay here and there. Someone gets booted off and I do MS Teams. I try to avoid phone hearings. Sometimes the vocational expert that's retained by the SSA or the OHO, the Office of Hearings Operations, is unable to hear or get through or gets disconnected. It happens and it's not unusual and it's nothing to panic about. I think I mentioned this in a different video. The ALJs, in my experience, are very accommodating in terms of let's get everybody back on board. They want to get this thing off their plate. They want to do their work, get it done, be productive, boom. They do not want this case back on their docket for another hearing date. Of course not. So, and they don't want claimants to wait any longer than they already have. I mean, that's not their goal. They are not entirely the enemy, although I hear some comments out there to suggest that. But in any event, this particular case did fly kind of sideways. It was a phone hearing, again, colleague, and the ALJ issued a show cause, which means the claimant and the rep, unified, of course, need to show cause as to why the whole matter shouldn't just be dismissed because they didn't show up. I have not seen that happen in this instance before, so I'm not sure what's going on over there. But if you find that for some reason you can't get through and it's a tech issue, first of all, what I recommend doing is MS Teams is ideal. You make sure you can sign on. I would do it a half hour before the scheduled hearing. That's what I do because I want to know if we're going to be having problems. Because if we are, I'm also calling that hearing office and making sure they are aware ahead of time. Even if it means I leave a voicemail, I want my contact known. If I couldn't get through to the hearing office, I would be going online, and I know you guys probably can't, well, actually, to what extent you can or cannot do it as a pro se, I don't know, but I'll give a suggestion. I would go myself online, assuming I can get online, and I would be uploading a letter saying, hey, we're trying to get through to our hearing. It is 15 minutes before the hearing, but we're having difficulties. So if something goes awry, please know that we are here and we are trying. And I would save a screenshot of the confirmation that that letter was uploaded successfully. If you don't have upload access, which you probably don't if you are a pro se person, use the fax number to the OHO office. It's on the upper right corner of every OHO, and that's Office of Hearings Operations, all of the letters you got concerning your ALJ hearing. And I would fax a note or a letter to them. Just, you could do it on handwritten paper. You want to have your name, your social, your address. And if you're doing it by hand, that's fine. If you need to, take a picture of it and fax it up because you don't have a hard fax. That's fine. And you fax it to that number on the upper right, and then keep a copy of the confirmation page that says you successfully faxed it. Because you want to have your backup to show that you were there and ready. So whether or not they know it at the time, if that judge were to do something as kind of obnoxious as this show cause requirement, you've got your paperwork backed up to show that you were there indeed. And it was the technology that the SSA chooses to use, knowing that everyone's got different cell phones, weather can be, variable in different parts of the country on any given different day. There are so many wild cards. So here you have your proof, and you sent it in before your hearing or shortly thereafter, if that's the way it rolls. That's understandable. But to show that you indeed were there, you're certifying to it, you're saying it, and you have that letter that went in timely. They know that you're sitting there talking about your hearing. So what's the chance you're actually in Aruba on vacation, right? Yeah, so that's what I would do. And again, if it's an MS Teams hearings, click on that link. You should have had a link emailed to you well prior to the hearing. Usually they say within no later than a day or two before the hearing. And you can even click on that link days before the hearing. And it should bring up an MS Teams box, dialogue box that says, the hearing hasn't started, but when it does, I think that's what it'll say. We'll let you know when they come in. Then you know that link is good. So then, back out of it, just close it down and use that link when the time comes. And again, I pop into my hearings a good 20 minutes before they start. Sometimes, and it's true that they don't start often on time because a previous hearing could have kept that judge a little late. No harm, no foul. That's the way it is. You have to kind of roll these punches on hearing day. If you get booted out of your hearing room when you're in the MS Teams waiting room, which you'll be in all by yourself, when your attorney or your rep goes into their waiting room, you're not going to see each other. At that time, though, turn off your mute, turn off your video, and you can text each other or call each other and confirm that you're both in your room. If you get booted out, that will happen. I want to say it's like a 40-minute time frame. It might be less. But I repeatedly get booted out because I've overstayed my time frame, and you just click that rejoin button. Not a big deal. None of this is a big deal as long as you communicate with your OHO, and that's only if you can't get in at all. It's probably a little more difficult with phone hearings because they're supposed to be calling you. You don't get to go into a waiting room. Another reason why I guess I would support MS Teams hearings even more. I'm not a huge fan of phone hearings. If for some reason you have an MS Teams hearing and the tech situation is so contrary on that day, whether it's you, the judge, the weather, the internet company, there's a million and one factors that go into this, right? If that's the case, and they do say, hey, would you consent to let's just doing this by phone since we're all here, we just can't seem to get this tech to work, then I would go with it, unless for some reason you're like, no, absolutely not. I can't. I need the judge to see my face. And there could be cases where that is relevant. Don't see them often. I suppose if there was a visual that your face would help contribute to the judge's knowledge of your condition, that could be important. If it is, if there's certain things that happen with your appearance, and it could be even when you're speaking, I'm thinking perhaps any tics, any visuals. It could be something different. It could be scars. It could be a bunch of different things or some sort of deformity you want him to see. That could be important for a visual MS Teams hearing. But if not, and you want your hearing to go forward and you feel confident in your medical records, then by all means, be willing to convert on the spot to a phone hearing, and they will call you on your phone. There are so many ways to skin this cat. But again, you don't want to be that person that gets a show cause. So if you are trying to receive the call, it's not happening. I don't know the full details. I wasn't there. I've just heard my colleague tell me about it, and it sounded like a nightmare. And if you have a disgruntled ALJ, which I don't really experience that, but I know it can happen, and I'm sure it'll happen to me someday. You're going to want to make sure your communications are well documented. You have proof that you tried to call in. And by the way, if you did try to call in and it got rejected and you think you don't have proof, not really true. You could probably go to your cell phone bill usage through your cell phone company, online or otherwise, and you can get a printout of all outgoing calls, and you can see that you called the number of the OHO. And I would get a copy of that document, and I would include that. I would keep it on file, and if you get a show cause, you would include that and say, this is not true. I tried to call and they didn't pick up, or something tech happened. Keeping a paper trail and keeping proofs before you know you need them is a really good habit. I try to do it as much as possible. Again, we're all human, and sometimes we fall down on that job or our own tech fails us. But by and large, that's the best way to do it. And again, you can always shoot that letter up too. And if you have to scroll it on a piece of napkin, take a picture of it, and then internet fax it to the OHO's fax number. Make sure, of course, your name is clear, your social is clear, and your details. That's what I would do. You have to roll with the punches, be creative if you have to, and you'll get through this. Don't let a disgruntled ALJ take you down when you didn't have your hearing. Okay. And it might just be they just want to make the person, show that they were there. Maybe the ALJ really doesn't know that you were there, and it looked like you didn't even show up. And you can prove otherwise. It's not complicated. It's not hard. You can do it. All right. Okay, guys. I will chat with you later. I hope that helps. And I know it's happened to other people. I've heard about them. But this time it was a colleague, and I felt for her. I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.